Good morning and welcome to the Felten studio celebration. After last week's Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade, I've heard from a lot of you who are looking to channel your frustration and anger into something productive. One of United Methodism's partners, the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, or rcrc.org, has been working for years to expand reproductive health care for all Americans, especially those from vulnerable communities for whom access is limited. Right now, the RCRC is partnering with the Faith Movement for Abortion Access and other faith-rooted organizations and activists who are committed to fighting for reproductive health and rights. A growing community of clergy and laity, these groups are coming together to ensure that pregnant people can access compassionate care and reproductive choices, no matter what the courts decide. Just follow the link below to fill out the form and join this movement of people of faith who are seeking to guarantee reproductive health care choices for all, especially for marginalized and low-income people. Once you sign up, you'll be emailed resources as well as a link to an upcoming webinar that will help you get plugged into this work at both the local and national level. For my whole career, the United Methodist Church has supported reproductive choice and has respected the autonomy and dignity of women in making decisions about their own lives and families. And there are other people of faith across the board who agree. Together, we can restore these basic rights and continue moving forward in creating the world we all know is possible. In the meantime, wherever and whenever you're joining us, we're glad you're here.
Let's join together in our call to celebration, adapted from Dwight D. Eisenhower's second inaugural address. Before all else, we speak of our common labor as a nation.
And ask that the blessing of God and hopes in our hearts fashion the deepest prayers of our whole people.
May we pursue the right without self-righteousness.
May we know unity without conformity.
May we grow in strength without pride in itself.
May we, in our dealings with all people of the earth, ever speak truth and serve justice.
May the light of freedom flame brightly until at last the darkness is no more.
May the turbulence of our age yield to a true time of peace,
when all peoples and nations shall share alike,
and honor the dignity of each and the common humanity of all.
Above the fruited plain, America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Let's affirm the Fountain's mission together. As followers of Jesus,
We put love first.
In 1913, Rabindranath Tagore was the first South Asian to be awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. And as we enter into this time of centering, let me share with you a few lines from one of his prayer poems. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way, into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee, into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. Let my country awake.
Make us one, Lord, make us one. Holy Spirit, make us one. Let your love flow so the world will know we are one in you. Make us one, Lord, make us one. Holy Spirit, make us one. Let your love flow so the world will know we are one in
On the occasion of our celebration of independence, we look with honesty to the past and hope for the future, open to the Spirit's guidance as we contemplate the work yet to be done. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken.
but simply unfinished,
We will not march back to what was,
but move to what shall be.
a country that is bruised but whole.
Benevolent but bold, fierce and free,
We will not be turned around
or interrupted by intimidation.
because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation.
Our blunders become their burdens.
But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might,
And might with right,
then love becomes our legacy.
and change our children's birthright.
So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left with.
This is our prayer.
We offer this time of quiet, bringing our whole selves in the name of the one who taught his first followers to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Make us one, Lord, make us one. Holy Spirit, us one, Lord, make us one. Holy Spirit, make us one. Let your love flow so the world will know we are one in
Hi, for our mission moment this morning, I want to talk about a really fun thing that we can do for the kids at the Wesley Golden Gate Community Center. This is a group of students who we have supported in the past for Adopt a Kid for Christmas. And the kids are involved this summer in a program at the Wesley Golden Gate Center. We would like to be able to present their backpacks and school supplies and a gift card for Famous Footwear for shoes for back to school. If you love to buy backpacks and paper and rulers and crayons and all of the fun school supplies, I hope that you will join me and Derek as we shop for back to school supplies for the Wesley school kids. Please have your supplies to the church by July 24th. If you would like for me and Derek to shop for you, we would be happy to do that as well. Just let me know. Thank you very much, and help these kids have a good back to school start. Thanks.
Every day, the Fountain strives to put love first, both in person and online.
And if you one of the many regular online visitors, we're grateful for the participation as a digital member.
Every week, you hear about all the many ways you can give electronically to support this online outreach, like using the QR code on the screen, or going to the give.weputlovefirst.org, or downloading the Vanco mobile app. Then, when you're on our secure giving site, be sure to look for the line that says Studio Celebration Donation.
A contribution here lets us know you're out there, that the studio is important to you, and that you want to be a part of supporting the growing digital outreach.
So, wherever and whenever you're watching, we're glad you're joining us.
Thanks in advance for supporting the studio financially.
This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and because of what the Lord has done for us. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because God's given Jesus Christ, the Son. Give thanks.
Our passage today is part of the run-up to two classic Bible stories, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego surviving the fiery furnace, and Daniel surviving the lion's den. Both incidents occurring because the main Jewish characters were being punished for refusing to bow down and worship a god other than Yahweh. To be clear, none of these stories ever happened. They are allegories written by a 2nd century author encouraging his contemporaries to stay strong in their faith, despite being oppressed by the evil Greek king Antiochus V Epiphanes. But in order to not be punished himself, the author of Daniel set the stories 400 years beforehand, when the Jews were in captivity in Babylon. That way, if he was ever accused of criticizing the king that he was indeed denouncing, there was plausible deniability. No, I'm not criticizing His Eminence Antiochus. This is a story about something that took place a long time ago. For comparison, think about Arthur Miller's play, The Crucible. Miller wrote the play as an allegory condemning McCarthyism and its persecution of people accused of being communists. But he set it 300 years earlier during the Salem witch trials, so he could say, no, I'm not criticizing the House Committee on Un-American Activities. This is a story about something that took place a long time ago. So, today's story is set in Babylon when the Jews first arrive in exile. The Babylonians kidnapped only the most skilled Jews, so the next priority was to assimilate them into Babylonian culture and put them to work. So, because names are important, the first thing the Babylonians did was to strip them of their Jewish names and give them names honoring Babylonian deities. For those of us who don't speak Hebrew, this whole aspect of the story can be totally missed. But once you know to look, it becomes really obvious. Daniel, or God is my judge, was renamed Belteshazzar, protect the king. Hananiah, Yahweh is gracious, to Shadrach, by the command of the moon god. Mishael, who is better than Yahweh, became Meshach, who is better than Aku, the moon god. Azariah, Yahweh has helped, became Abednego, servant of Nebo, the god of wisdom. So, when you hear the passage read today, be sure to pay attention. Remember that names are important, and know that, just like in the ancient world, names today are still used as political propaganda.
Our words of wisdom are from Daniel chapter 1, verses 3 through 4 and 5b through 7. Then King Nebuchadnezzar ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace.
He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service.
Among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah.
The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name of Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego.
Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.
I am going into this message assuming two things. Number one, that none of you have named your children Satan, Hitler, or Typhoid Mary. Why? Because you know that names have meaning. Names carry with them an unspoken endorsement of someone, honors someone, or has an aspirational element to them. Nat and I went to a comedy show a couple of weeks ago, and one of the comedians was talking about having named his son Maximum Chaos Steinberg. That's his real given name. Now that's planning ahead. The second thing I'm assuming is that as a follower of Jesus, you want to promote and live out the values that Jesus taught and lived. Radical acceptance, respect, unconditional love, care for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. Yes? Well, let's explore the name aspect first. The Bible is full of intentional name changes, usually to establish a character's new identity or life's trajectory. For obvious storyline reasons, God changed Abram's name, meaning High Father, to Abraham, meaning Father of a Multitude, and changed Sarai, meaning My Princess, to Sarah, meaning Mother of Nations. For his new role, Jacob, which means supplanter or overreacher, absolutely needed a more respectable name, and that's why he was renamed Israel, meaning having power with God. Again, if you pay attention to the meaning of names in Hebrew, you know from the beginning that things are not likely to work out well for Ruth's sons, Mahlon and Chilion, which mean sickness and wasting. "Hi," says Chilion to a prospective date. "My name is Wasting." "So nice to meet you," as she steps away. Right? So, in the New Testament, Jesus changed Simon's name, which means God has heard, to Peter, meaning rock. And for obvious political reasons, the very Jewish Saul was changed to the very Greek Paul. Our names are an incredibly important part of our identity. They carry deep personal, cultural, familial, and historical connections. They can give us a sense of who we are, where we come from, the community to which we belong, and our place in the world. Some of you know that when Catholics are confirmed, they often take on the name of a particular saint who they aspire to be like. Navajos are given a secret name that is only known to family members and used in sacred rituals. When the Fountains was first started, the founding leadership demonstrated a staggering lack of imagination in chartering us as First United Methodist Church of Fountain Hills, like there were going to be other United Methodist churches in Fountain Hills. It took the visionary leadership of Reverend Ed Grant to say, you know, names do have meaning, and we can do better than First United Methodist. So, why does any of this matter? Because in recent years, people are arguing more about names. Some of you may remember the resistance to changing the name of the predominant peak in Central Phoenix. For years, Native Americans had objected to the name as being a derogatory name for women. Think the C word. It was eventually changed to Piestewa Peak in honor of Lori Ann Piestewa, the first Native American woman to die in combat in the U.S. military. Why change? Because names matter. Not just our names, but what we agree to name places carry deep cultural and historical connections. They give us a sense of who we are and our values as a community. And, as the Babylonians knew well, giving people or places certain names can be used to intimidate and threaten people. That's why, as we celebrate the 4th of July this weekend, I wanted to put in a good word for the work of what's called the Naming Commission, the group created by Congress to oversee the removal of Confederate names from our Army bases. And no, this is not political. It comes from my conviction as a follower of Jesus, who is moved to call out injustice, racism, and intimidation when I see it. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that the whole point of new names is to reflect the courage, values, sacrifices, and diversity of our military men and women. And as a follower of Jesus, I would advocate for names that don't glorify those who, for their own benefit, actively worked to enslave, oppress, and kill other human beings. After receiving more than 34,000 suggestions, the Naming Commission whittled those down to 87 potential names. And today, I'd like to share a quick overview of just 4 of the new names. And I encourage you to check out the rest of the names and backgrounds at thenamingcommission.gov. Amazing stories. First, let's look at Fort Benning on the Georgia-Alabama border. It was named not in the aftermath of the Civil War as a gesture of national reconciliation. No, it was named in 1918. This is an important date to remember because it was just 3 years earlier, in 1915, when the Ku Klux Klan was reestablished with a vengeance just a few miles away on Stone Mountain, Georgia. Confederate General Henry L. Benning was an ardent secessionist who bitterly opposed abolition and the emancipation of slaves. Benning stated that he would rather be stricken with illness and starvation than see African Americans liberated from slavery and be given equality as citizens. And he didn't use the words African Americans. In his place, the fort will be named for Hal and Julia Moore. Hal was a Vietnam veteran who oversaw and led the post-war transition to the all-volunteer armed forces the U.S. still maintains. He worked to stem racial conflict, to reduce drug abuse among soldiers, and served as Deputy Chief of Staff for Army personnel. His wife Julia worked with the American Red Cross and advocated for increased support for military families, including child care and other quality of life initiatives. Fort Bragg was also named in 1918, very possibly under the influence of the newly energized Klan. General Braxton Bragg was generally considered to be among the worst generals of the Civil War. Most of the battles he engaged in ended in defeat. He was extremely unpopular with both the officers and men under his command. Historians agree that the losses suffered by Bragg's forces were particularly significant in bringing about the defeat of the Confederacy. Oh, now there's somebody to emulate, right? Fort Bragg will be renamed Fort Liberty. Fort A.P. Hill was named in 1941 for a Confederate general historians consider to be a prime example of the Peter Principle. Although successful early on, he had a reputation for being so high-strung before battle that he would become unwell. He suffered with such severe symptoms of various venereal diseases as to sometimes become totally incapacitated, which makes the choice for a person to be honored in his place all the more appropriate. Fort A.P. Hill will be renamed in honor of Dr. Mary Edwards Walker, who, in 1863, became the first female surgeon in Army history. During the early years of the war, Walker attempted to enlist several times as a surgeon, but was refused because she was a woman. So, she volunteered. Her work treating wounded soldiers in field hospitals near the front lines did not go unnoticed. Eventually, she was put on the official staff, and in recommending her for the Medal of Honor after the war, General William Tecumseh Sherman said, "She devoted herself with much patriotic zeal to the sick and wounded soldiers, both in the field and hospitals, to the detriment of her own health." Proud of her service and committed to the causes of equality for which she served, Dr. Walker continued to wear her medal every day, including through 50 years of campaigning for women's equality and women's rights. Often arrested for her reformist ways, she told the court on one occasion that she would forever defend her right to dress as I please in free America, on whose tented fields I have served for 4 years in the cause of human freedom. Now that's somebody to name a fort after. Finally, Fort Polk, Louisiana, will be changed to Fort Johnson. Originally named for the first bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Louisiana, Leonidas Polk, this pro-slavery bishop broke away to form a new denomination that would uphold slavery, the Protestant Episcopal Church of the Confederate States of America. Polk was the largest slaveholder in his county, was known for his bitter disagreements with other generals, and overall is remembered for his sweeping lack of success in combat. He was killed in 1864. Sergeant William Henry Johnson, on the other hand, was a genuine hero, being one of the very first Americans to see action in World War I. Having signed up to serve in the segregated armed forces, Johnson and other black soldiers were transported separately and arrived in France before any of the white Americans. Standing guard duty at 2 a.m., Johnson heard wires being snipped right before a German raiding party attacked his position. With his comrade incapacitated and wounded himself, he could have surrendered, but chose to fight. Sounding the alarm, he threw grenades until his supply was exhausted. He fired his rifle until he was out of ammunition, and then he charged the enemy, swinging his rifle like a club. When he saw his wounded comrade being dragged away for interrogation, Johnson abandoned his rifle and drew his Bowie knife, fighting off the raiders at close quarters. In the end, Johnson had single-handedly engaged 24 men that night, killing at least 4 and wounding many of the rest. The United States' first hero of the Great War, Johnson was the first American soldier to ever receive the French Croix de Guerre. Dying destitute in obscurity in 1926, a victim of Jim Crow discrimination, he was forgotten for most of the 20th century. Then in 1996, he was posthumously awarded the Purple Heart, and then in 2002, the Distinguished Service Cross. In 2015, he was awarded the Medal of Honor. Look, if you disagree with this move to change the names of these bases, I don't know what to tell you. The argument that they were named to recognize men who were worthy of recognition just doesn't hold water. Under the influence of the Ku Klux Klan, a known terrorist organization, they were named in the 20th century as a way of honoring a racist, immoral cause. Some complain, well, what's next? Will we tear down the memorials to Washington and Jefferson because they owned slaves? Apples and oranges, friends. Their careers were not built on fighting for the right to own slaves. Washington and Jefferson are honored despite the hypocritical aspects of their stories, not because they fought to defend their hypocritical actions. The bottom line, these forts were named in the Jim Crow era in an effort to intimidate minorities and promote white supremacy. Navy Admiral Michelle Howard, the chair of the Naming Commission, says the committee sought to inspire today's soldiers and the local communities with names or values that have meaning and embody the best of America. Jim Crow, intimidation, and white supremacy are not the best of America. The generals for whom these bases are named are irredeemable, plain and simple. And I would hope, as followers of Jesus, that we can get behind not only the Army's efforts to make things right, but to make things right in our own neighborhoods. Like in Tempe, just last week. 3 schools in Tempe are being renamed because the men for whom they were originally named were members of the Ku Klux Klan. The Tempe Public School website says that the local Tempe chapter of the KKK focused specifically on anti-Catholic activity, specifically against Catholic teachers in the public schools. The new names for the schools were chosen to honor longtime educators in the Tempe area. As Amanda Gorman reminded us in our litany this morning, we will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. A country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation. And as followers of Jesus, that just might mean that we upset some people along the way. But as Jackie Robinson said back in 1954, I'm not concerned with your liking or disliking me. All I ask is that you respect me as a human being. The Confederate generals for whom these forts are currently named are not worthy of the honor. The very act of naming these forts after them was Babylonian-style propaganda. Let's name these forts after men who not only fought against the United States, but who had contempt for our core values of equality and justice for all. The time is long since past for us to commit them to oblivion. And you know who agrees with me? Robert E. Lee. When asked to attend a meeting concerning monuments honoring the Confederacy, Lee replied, I think it wiser not to keep open the sores of war, but to follow the example of those nations who endeavored to obliterate the marks of civil strife, to commit to oblivion the feelings engendered. On this 4th of July, let's remember those who have moved our country ahead and pledge to leave behind a country better than the one we were left with. Be well.
History.
Let us offer these words of challenge and blessing to one another. Are we not still dreaming of a world of peace?
where all live in freedom and all hatreds ceased,
Are we not still hoping for a fair new day?
one for which all suffering long before did fade,
On this day, we're dreaming of a world made bright.
freed from all its sorrows, living into light.
May we feel the courage stirring deep within.
May we cast the vision and this work begin.